This will be the start of the class. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jonathan Liuslist, and if you are unfamiliar with my work, I am an artist working in the entertainment industry. I am also an educator, and I teach artists privately how to, both feel better about their work, but also to make better decisions in their work. Today's class is going to be about artistic confidence. And I don't mean that to be like, oh, to be brave and to be strong in this like broader sense. It's really just a matter of being able to feel confident in your decisions that they're going to make good on their promise. Confidence is proof. In a lot of cases, what ends up happening when we are dealing with our artistic process is that we end up in a situation where we are doing something that is unfamiliar to us, and we then don't have proof that this will actually do something for us. And I'm going to teach you two ideas in this class that we're going to be using throughout. And that will be the plan for this call, to show them how they can work in multiple different ways. The first idea will be about just having ideas that make decisions, or making decisions that then make decisions for you, so that you have to, in the moment, make less decisions. That was a lot of decisions to say out loud, but we will get there. We'll come back to it, and then we will expand further on that idea. The second is to research in the reverse. And that has been an idea that I've been using a lot for myself. First, when I learned anatomy, and now as I'm using it in more and more occasions, I can really see that it has like a great power. And I'm combining those two ideas of making decisions that make decisions, and then using those decisions to then do proper research, creates you a space of confidence that you can then use to make better work, and make work that you feel better about, and also to be able to trust yourself that the studies that you are doing matter, because you have vetted them, you have decided that this is actually what I want to learn. All right. The first thing that we really have to realize when we are dealing with our artistic journey is that in order to be a master later, we kind of have to be a master already now, and as far as like knowing these are our limitations and this is what I'm working within. And I think about a quote from Vincent van Gogh quite a lot, which is in a letter to his brother, who supported him his whole life. He wrote the following: "If I am worth something later, then I am worth something now. Because wheat is wheat, even if people mistake it for grass in the beginning." And I really love this idea of realizing that if you're going to be worth something later, then you have immediate value already. So to not discredit ourselves and say, oh, I'm not worth anything because I can only do this, just do only this, and these are my limits. But instead, really to stand out and say, this is what I can do. And the issue comes from, okay, but I could decide to master myself, and I'm going to like be good and be brave and do all these things and really be in control. But then what do I do? And in art, there's so many different decisions that you can do that we almost become blind, or like we actually get like there's an expression called analysis paralysis, tongue twister, or kind of like a decision blindness, where the sheer number of things that we could potentially do at our desk at any given time basically overlaps in a way that gives us anxiety. So there's this question that comes up constantly, which is this the right choice that I'm making? All right, so let's try to talk about how we can investigate our own work to figure out what we need to study exactly to improve meaningfully. So when I'm talking about working towards like a big idea, I'm going to bring up another artist's work. Howard Pyle would basically work in a way where he would, as much as possible, strip away everything but what was essential to tell the story that he is telling. So in this case, it's a man, he's marooned, he's been left to die, right? There's nothing else that comes in this image to stop this idea. Basically, by focusing on this man's loneliness and his despair, it makes it so that a lot of decisions are actually made already, Because if there's a guy with him, if he was someone standing next to him, suddenly like he's together, the situation changes all entirely. If you're depicting battle, in this case, this is a painting of a ship battle, you can see that everything goes together to kind of show the chaos of the situation. And in a way, he's using this idea to display things in multiple times. So you have a guy who is dead, and you have the people who are fighting, and we are next in a way. We don't really know the result, but we can lean into that. When we are sketching and we are painting, this it's often that we start with not necessarily knowing what is the idea that I have in mind. However, once we kind of discover it, then that becomes the leading force where you can say, is this more or less towards my idea? So in the case of this painting, he is so-called, it's a fight, obviously. We can kind of see that there's a story in three parts, right? You have the treasure, you have the man who's been wounded, he's been cut from a fight, and you have his dead comrade, right? Both of these people are going to die. There's no necessity for there to really be anything else in this image, right? You have the sand dunes of the digging, but that's it. That's the main point. The way that I end up using this idea to filter what my decision making is while I'm painting is basically to, once I know what I'm after, then if I'm painting something into the piece, into the painting, I can then decide if this is a fit or not. Instead of thinking, should I just paint this better? Because we can always paint things better. Making it better is not advice. It is not advice to say, oh, just make it better, because we can always come in and, oh, just paint the mountain a bit better, paint the palm trees a bit better, paint the statue a bit better. But it doesn't help if necessarily that the whole balance will be thrown off by one detail being drawn better. By going back and saying and relying on the idea of like, what is the painting about and what is the central theme of the painting, that can help us navigate our work. When I think of some of my most successful old work, so this is quite an old painting, there's kind of like an emotional quality that comes from everything kind of leading to one point. So even though this is an old piece, I can still have an emotional reaction because the idea, the emotional tone of this sadness and loneliness is still conveyed properly. And in a sense, that is the satisfying point. Is it satisfying the conditions we put out for the piece emotionally rather than on a technical basis? This idea also helps us discover what is missing. What is missing from the piece to complete it? I'm using this piece a lot to explain this principle it's about the idea, not better. And this is a really, really rare painting because this is a master painting by an artist named Harvey Dunn, a fantastic illustrator. And this is the published painting in the newspaper, and he actually got it back and he repainted it. When we are talking about making it better, you can see like, okay, like if you want to make improvements to this painting, okay, then you paint the boat a bit more detailed, maybe a bit more lines there, the guys are here. But the main theme of this painting is like lost at sea, or kind of like this capture of despair. So I'm going to go to the next version, the one we have that survives to this day, which is the one he painted over, he said, with mud. And you will see that it has less detail, but it is far more complete towards this idea. This is the result that exists today. And you can see that it has all the same elements. It has the man, it has the boat, it has the ocean, and it has his body. But this man is obviously not doing well. When we are thinking about this idea of despair, that allows us to much more closely lean in and actually discover what we need to do, or if the thing that we're doing is actually in the wrong direction. So again, this solves the problem, man lost at sea in boat, right? And yet, when you compare them, if I go back and forth, like the emotional tone makes this one feel like they're just on a fishing trip, they are drunk, like everything is going on. It's not the same when you compare it here, because here I'm like, this man is going to die. And so that is the qualifier that I end up having for my own work when I'm painting, is when I'm stuck, it's usually because I'm trying to solve the piece like this. I have the details in, and I'm just trying to fill it out without really taking the time to figure out like what is actually happening in this painting. I guess I will have to show you some things about how to ask questions of paintings, but it will have to wait a moment. Knowing then that we are trying to go back to an idea, basically saying, okay, we're gonna come back to like the central theming of what is going on in this painting, in this piece. That allows us to also be a lot more free because we can sketch things more loosely and kind of like evaluate them based on the what's it called, just on the thumbnail. Doing a thumbnail and being able to evaluate it as like something where you are able to tell this is definitely going to be a good piece, this is going to be a good painting, that's a skill in itself. And I think that for a large portion of all artists, it's like the thumbnailing stage, which is really crucial for planning, is often quite not explained. And the way that it's being taught is that you have to just try a lot of things. I want to instead introduce you again to the first idea we presented, this idea of going for the reverse and basically figuring out like what is the end result we want to end up with, and how do we get there from these initial stages. When I am teaching anatomy to people, I don't have necessarily the time to go in and explain all the muscles. I rather explain the systems. So in the case of a muscle, one of the main points is that all the muscle balloons, basically, they can only pull. So each muscle we have here, it actually can only pull things in one direction. In order for me to move my arm, I have to have a direction that pulls it up here and one that pulls it down. And that is actually enough information to go, okay, for each direction of movement, I need a muscle to cover it up. And when we're looking at something like, see here, animals, for instance, like something like a horse here from the Ellenberger anatomy books, you can see that the anatomy and analytical lineups and drawings, if I then bring up a picture of a lion and I swap between them, you can see that the same necessity of movement creates these muscle shapes, because they all have to move the arm like this. Now, what increases the complexity in the case of the lion's arm compared to the horse is that the horse has one finger and the tiger has 5, right? And so the same goes for the humans. The reason why there's like 16 muscles in the forearm that you don't need the name of is because we have 10 muscles just to direct the fingers. We actually have more because we also have one in the hand to do this with the thumb, right? And we pull it out using a muscle up in the arm, for the thumb in the arm. You can feel it when you move it. And we have one in the hand to actually close the palm. And so knowing this, you can actually go in and say, okay, like I want to get better at drawing anatomy, but I don't necessarily want to study broadly anatomy. Again, because then where do I start? Like what happens? And we get into this decision paralysis. And it's like, it's just too much. It's too much information. So here I have a drawing. This is a sketch. And I've been drawn over the sketch a few times in different classes, but I like it. I like the example it gives. So this is a cool little gesture. I can kind of get a feeling of like what the painting could be. It's like either like a comparisons. If I move the body a bit forward, it would become like forward like rage, a bit back, and it's like more like a shocked expression. What I'm really thinking about is if there's like a little bit of uncertainty. So for instance, like I'm like this line, if I remove it, the arm feels fine, right? Like I can tell like that there's nothing necessarily wrong with this line. And so I'm like, is it going over or under? Or do I not even need to do it at all? So I have this uncertainty right here. And this is where we can kind of use this idea of, oh, I now know what I'm missing, right? And now it's time to come in and actually do the research. So I can basically circle this, right? And you can do this for all parts of your drawing, right? But don't do this like, oh, I don't know what's going on. I'm just gonna like circle the whole thing. This is too broad of a thing to study. You have to be a lot more specific when it comes to the things that you are actually studying and drawing. So in this case, I would say, okay, I need to know something about the transition of the arm here along the elbow because I really want to be sure that this line is interacting correctly because this is where I'm uncertain. I know for sure I don't know. And then you can bust out the anatomy book because now you know. So this is Struttur Omo. It's on archive.org. And it's like a really fantastic, crazy book. It has the best illustrations of the muscles I've ever seen. And now I can go, okay, what is actually happening here? So in 2 minutes, I can just put a timer and say, I'm going to learn something about the elbow right now. And I can see here, okay, the brachyradialis, which is this muscle, and muscles' names are really obvious because it's like brachy, that's the arm. Radialis is because it's going along the radius, which is the bone that turns around the ulna. And so brachyradialis, like all the muscles are basically saying, here's where I am in the body. When we are dealing with this, now I can see, okay, in 20 seconds, I already learned something about the arm, and I can see where's the intersections, where's the overlap. Now I know for certain where this line should be, right? It should go into the arm confidently, and I can just draw that out. It should overlap here because the bicep goes under the brachialis, right? There's the kind of like implied line here that we don't see unless people are super, super muscular with huge triceps as well. This had a profound effect on my art when I started doing this. I basically went from having no direction in how I studied to having a list of like a little laundry list of these are things I want to learn because I know they are useful right now. And if you look at like a lot of fantastic illustrators, they kind of introduce a step of research into their planning, into their ideation, where like this is my opportunity to learn. So whenever we hit a stump or a wall where we are for sure we don't know what we're doing, this is not a chance to despair and be like, oh my God. This is a chance to go, okay, I have now an opportunity to learn about the world. This is the most exciting thing about being an artist. You have so many reasons just to fucking look at the world all the time and enjoy it. And then, because your decisions of what you're supposed to study are made by the things that you're actually working on, that becomes a driving loop. So you focus on the idea, and then you do the study. For instance, in my case, right, I do a lot of character stuff, but I know the muscles of the leg because I'm interested in it, right? This like suddenly you become curious and you learn more. But I need to draw people with pants most of the time. Arms come up all the time, right? So if I follow this idea, I might never actually study anything near closely as much as I have studied the arms and the intersection between the deltoid and the rest of the body. Because then, when I draw people with pants on, I just need to know where the knee is because that would be the easier thing to do. I can do a line that searches and finds, okay, that's where the knee is, and suddenly that's the leg, and now I can just focus on like how is the drapery coming along on that portion. This also helps you not cause this like colossal depth where you're just like, oh my God, there's so much I fucking have to learn. And you go, okay, but I'm just gonna take what I need right now, and then I'm gonna learn that. So I brought this up because I was talking about thumbnails. Because I think a lot of people, they really neglect the force of just like doing a good scribble. So you've probably seen this sketch. Let me see if I can load it in. So this is the sketch that I have for my painting that you saw in the very beginning, right? It's like a little painting. And it's like, so this sketch took me like less than 20 seconds to do. And from that, I had to basically decide, I'm willing to spend, 2 weeks of my life working on a painting for no reason. And so that's a bit of commitment. So it's like this carries a lot of power. And I think that's also another cause of like decision making paralysis. Like, is this the right thing to do? Again, because I want to be pro and I rush it a bit. There's just so many things I need to do right now. And then we don't even sit down to make plans that will save us a lot of time down the line. So the same principle applies in this case, where what we're really trying to do is we're trying to learn how to make a thumbnail based on other people's work, what other people are doing. So I will not cover in-depth painting and analysis. I will just give you a primer that you can try out for yourself. And if you have any questions, again, just reach out to me because I do intend to go more in depth in a later time. It's just I done this with a class of mine, and it took us like an hour and a half to get through. So you're gonna get the brief notes, the 10-minute notes, and then we can have a little question and ask. So before I move into that, is there any questions from the call that you would like me to elaborate on from the things we have here?
Yeah, so you're trying to identify uncertainty based on your previous work.
Yeah.
What work do you look at to identify these uncertainties? I'm assuming it has to be like from imagination if you're doing anatomy studies, for example.
It can be any drawing. Essentially, any drawing that you've done recently, right? So it's like anything within the last month is a source of information of like how you treat the world. For instance, when it comes to something like a figure drawing, I realized that one thing about figure drawing was that when you're doing like studies from reference, you are also designing, right? You are interpreting, you are understanding, you're showcasing your understanding, and every single line that you do on the page basically explains what you were thinking at the time, right? It showcases your struggle. It showcases like what's the matter. When I'm looking at a drawing like this, so this is I think like a 3-minute drawing, and I'm doing it based on a dance video. So it's like this person is basically in the middle of a movement, and so these two hands, they explain what comes after, right? He's about to twist up and go out, and that's like the gesture that I wanted from it. Now, I'm also studying all kinds of other artists at the same time. So let's see here. Here's some other like very quick line drawings, just kind of like get the placement, but like just so I have the idea, and then I can kind of like work out the spacing afterwards. But you can see like I'm trying my best to basically explain as much as I can, and you can kind of see like here's these long lines here. They're like there to search for the dimensions of the drawing, and then these lines next to it, they're actually like the real drawing. So I'm kind of like doing a line to figure out like what is the space that I'm looking for. Where's the elbow? Where's the wrist? And then I come in and usually I delete those lines afterwards. So here's like this drawing is basically just those lines. And then I clean up, I remove these lines, and this is what the drawing kind of ends up looking like. When I'm looking at a drawing like this, I can infer a lot about where I have doubt still. For instance, I think that this line here, even if I can make excuses like, oh, it's just a quick gesture, like I don't need to worry about it, I can clearly tell that this ellipse on the wrist, right? It's like this arm is meant to go back, right? It's meant to be forced back. You can see like in the way the fingers are like covering it, right? Like there's like the perspective is basically shown like this, and it's meant to go back, which means that this line running across the wrist is actually wrong because it's not explaining the perspective of the wrist. It's just like a straight line running across. Now, that's just like a little fault, but I'm looking at that, I'm saying, okay, there's multiple clues in this arm that suggest that the arm is actually in front like this, like flat, right? And it's headed towards us. But the hand is going like crazy like that, but the wrist is not being supported. So to me, even though this is a quick drawing from reference, I can clearly tell that this is something where I half-assed it. I didn't care enough to really correct this. And I could come in later and redraw it. You can always come back, no matter what the drawings are, and just like look at what are the issues that you can find yourself. And if you can't find them yourself, just ask someone that you feel is more experienced to look for them for you, and then be willing to be coached. It's super crucial to not just ignore the work that you are doing, because there's so much opportunity for you to really learn about yourself and your habits just by looking at what's happening. So I record myself drawing, and you can see like I also record myself with the video on, which obviously is not like the best style. So you can see like this is what I look like when I'm drawing, and I do that because there's no way for me to actually check my process after I'm done working, because I don't really keep many steps. I delete so much of the process. So if I just increase the speed here, at first these drawings, like I mean, like they don't really look like anything. They're not meant to look like anything. I'm just putting in a few marks to kind of figure out the distancing and spacing. And in many cases of these drawing sessions, I'm actually not necessarily involved. The reason why I push for all my students and everyone really to learn anatomy is because it gives you confidence that you can do it again. Like there's nothing worse than doing a good hand that is wrong. That is wrong for the drawing. You know what I mean? Like you do like a really good hand, you're like, oh fuck, or you do a really good right eye, and then you can't do the left one, and you're gonna spend the next 45 minutes just being like, oh my god, and you're gonna redraw that left eye. The reason why I practice so much drawing is because when I'm drawing, I want my drawing session to look like this. And this is also why I don't share my drawing process that often, because it can be quite chaotic. Look, I was like, this is the wrong pose. Let me just delete the whole thing, use what I just learned that the drawing is not, to then completely start over, right? And if I was not confident that I could do a good drawing, then obviously I would not be able to calmly sit and say, okay, what is the idea I'm actually looking for? So here in this case, you can see here I'm doing the search lines, I'm figuring out like what's happening, and I'm kind of thinking, okay, maybe something more broad and forward, maybe with the leg. And I mean, if I just skip ahead, you can see like I'm like, no, this is not what's happening. And now the reason why I show this recording is because I actually did a really good face here that is wrong for my intention. And instead of saying, okay, I'm just gonna redo my intention so that the face can match, I instead just try to make it fit. And so this recording is 4 hours of recording, to give you a sense of the time scale here. And you can see like I'm putting in hands, I'm putting in arms, I'm putting in gestures, and I'm just trying to figure out like what is the spacing, and this is some imagination. So I'm kind of saying, okay, like what can I do to place things out and to figure out like what's going on. And it's like, this face is nice, like this hand is nice, like there's a lot of things that I can like, oh, that's a good thing I can go back to. And a few moments later, I'm basically deleting all these things. So hand, arm, I skip forward a bit longer, and you can see that all these different parts, like in this recording totally, I draw like more than 40 hands that I then delete. Like I draw them up fully, and I'm like, nah, not good enough, or like, no, not fitting, right? Because it's not about being good or bad. It's more about like, is it appropriate for the situation? And so this arm is also lovely. And it's like both these two things combined is just completely messing with me, because I want them to stay there, right? Like I'm also trapped in this. I can't just say, oh, I'm going to start over completely and just figure it out. Because maybe if I just draw the fingers really nice, then it'll work. And then we'll just keep going. So we're now 2 hours in, and I'm basically no further than I was in the very beginning. And so that's also like another matter of like, I am confident that I can just sit and work on it till it is complete, like a complete idea. In some cases, I might go find some reference that's more appropriate. But what ends up happening here is that before I kind of go to bed, you see like delete the body again, like and I delete the eyes, I close the eyes. So let me find the second half of this recording. So now it's morning. Okay, so I kind of like start redrawing the face here. I delete the face, and finally, like now the drawing is released from its kind of prism. And so this is an hour and a half left of this drawing, and I still haven't figured out like what to necessarily do with the face. And so I will have to delete it once more to really figure that out. And once I find the appropriate angle, then the drawing draws itself. So it's this willingness to sit and keep searching, to keep sitting in it, that allows me then to do better work. Because again, like this is 3 hours in, and I'm just looking for a few good decisions, because ultimately, if I'm going to paint this, it's going to be multiple days of work, potentially, depending on how I'm treating the thing. So I want to be sure that these things will actually feel good and work properly and be right. And so not all my drawing sessions are this chaotic. You know, like they are not where like I take this long to do it. But it's this, because sometimes they just come together like really quickly, and like I feel awesome. But in many cases, I have to sit and work with this. So I kind of keep this recording around, because I'm like, oh, look at this. I did 4 hours of drawing to achieve something that I think I could easily do in 30 minutes if I really knew what I was after. So it's just this willingness to be able to keep searching. When you record your work as well, you also get an opportunity to reflect on how you make decisions, because you can see how it started and how it began. In a lot of cases, I like to have both available to me after the fact. See here, like I kind of save my files like this, where you can see that I have the sketch next to the final image. And I do this because ultimately, like, I don't spend time with either. Like, I do the sketch and then I immediately remove it and I start over trying to figure out like what the spacing is. And then the final painting, it's really just like meant for other people, right? Like it, I am a painter, I'm an artist, and my work is the process. And if you can realize that your work is the process, then you can take it seriously in a whole other way. Your job is not to have final pieces, it is to continue making. And in some cases, you might be doing this for a consultancy thing, or you might be doing it for yourself. Your job is, in some cases, and depending on how you're working, is to be in the chair in a way, and to be able to do creative things. We come back to the painting and analysis. So one way to kind of think about figuring out like how people are working, how artists are working, is to basically go and see if you can find, you know, like preliminary work. Like this is from a book on Harvey Dunn. I had a friend photograph the pages for me, and this is the initial sketch of this man, right? Like, and he, I mean, and it's like this is the guy who painted the boat painting, right? These sketches, they are meant to be done in a way where you get a sense of like everything that's there if you know what you're looking for. Obviously, to us, it can feel quite incomprehensible. So let's see here. So here's one, for instance, where, you know, he did this painting of a man talking in there on a horseback, and here we have the final piece. And obviously the horse is there, the people are there, like, but they're not meant to be these detailed scribbles. They're basically just to get a sense of like, can you evaluate the idea? And the quicker that you can arrive at a point where you feel that you can evaluate your idea, the better you can stop and think, am I on the right track? If you have to paint for a long time before you are able to, you know, say, oh, is this good or bad? Like if you are like, you know, 10 hours into a painting and you realize, oh, this is bad, this is not what I wanted at all, then you kind of have to do a lot more backtracking, and it's a lot more emotionally painful to go through. We realize this kind of mistake. And again, if you have the confidence, you have the feeling of control, then you can kind of get out of that. Let's see here. Yes. So, for instance, here's the painting. Here's the sketch of these men on a boat, and they are smugglers. They are fishing illegally, and you can like feel this tension, this danger. And I will bring it up to to kind of say how, in a way, when we're looking at the painting, I want to be able to paint like this. I want to have this. Like this is amazing. Like this gesture of this man, the choice, the feeling of like uncertainty that these people have about like whatever is out here is really amazing. So I want to be able to learn how to do this because this is the decision making that led him to this result. So instead of necessarily thinking about how can I just fix and copy like and steal the painting style, but obviously there's ways to do that, and we can get into it if we have enough time. But essentially, when we are having this end result without necessarily being able to do this, then if we copy this, we won't necessarily understand the decision making that we can then use in our own thumbnail, in our own initial sketches, and our little ideas. So what we can kind of see from this sketch alone is that he gets the boat in there, then like the minimal gesture of the people, and this like this way he's reaching out. He might have had friends. They usually they would be like an artist village at this time, so he might have had a friend come over and like kind of like pose for him to kind of figure out like what is happening. And you can kind of see that it creates this like little neat triangle between them where all their gestures are basically meeting these three people. And this thumbnail, even though it was chosen, you can see that there are items in this that are not in the final painting. So you can also see how he decided to change things out. Like here, he removed this line and made the person's gesture be much closer to his chest instead of like leaning out and having the arms be long. And in a way, if I go here, lower the opacity of this. If I just trace out And I kind of think, like, if I zoom way out here, the scratch disks are full. Hang on, my computer is like crashing soon. Just a moment. Let me just uninstall a video game here. Hang on. I'm getting a scratch disk full error. Let me just make some space. It says I cannot use my brush tool because the scratch disk is full. That's crazy. Let's see. While I wait for that to happen, is there any questions for this? So if I'm zoomed way out, and I can kind of get this like feeling of like, what is the decisions that kind of come together to help this? I'm looking at the shape of the boat, how he's using both the water and the reflection of the boat to like lead us into the image. Like, so I'm reducing the contrast so I can only see like the major points. It's kind of like squinting, and I'm kind of seeing like this clear line in here, and then it goes up along the boat and points us in towards the men. And if I follow the directions of the things that are happening, I can kind of see that there is a kind of a complete circle here that happens. So when I look at the thumbnail, I'm like, okay, well, where's the evidence of this thought already being possible? So this is not always, you won't always have the thumbnails of the final paintings available. This is kind of a rare treat. You can see like he found the water reflection. That was like a big part of the sketch. And then he also has the line of the rudder pointing in, and you kind of keeps a lot of the same elements. So he probably extended the canvas a bit out when he actually made it to have it just barely touch. Actually, no, he has it in the thumbnail too. So a lot of planning can already be done there. I'm going to bring up a painting that I actually have studied a lot, which is this painting by Howard Pyle, because I can give a much more concise demonstration of this idea if I do that. So this is the Attack on the Galleon, also a piece by Howard Pyle. And the important bit in this painting is that it's pirates attacking a ship. And I'm just gonna bring it in to Photoshop. Yes. So when I'm thinking about painting and analysis, like the first thing that I kind of ask myself about, it's not just like I don't just draw lines on the image usually, because I'm not necessarily interested in that at first. What I really want to know is, how can I investigate this painting? Oh yeah, I'm gonna find the questions I actually wrote down for my students right now. So it's for you as well. The first question is, what am I seeing? And this feels like a dumb question at first, because obviously I'm seeing a boat on this thing. But in many cases, the trick with these questions is that we're using them on pieces that are already finalized, so that when we're working on our own work, we can also notice these things and ask ourselves if you're on the right track. So if your idea is I'm painting boats that are attacking and I'm not seeing any boats, then that's a problem, right? So what am I seeing? And then the second question is, how do I know that these are boats, right? How do I know that these are pirates? And just in general, like, how do I know that this is the case? Like, what is it that gives me the evidence that this is the situation that's happening, right? And you can clearly see that these people are not friendly, because where they appear in the boat, there's fire, right? Like, so this is there's also the title, Attack on the Galleon. Everything in this painting is kind of leading in to make us look at the fire and then come back out. And there's a few ways he's doing that, so we'll get back into that. The second question is, why am I looking at the point of interest? That is about investigating the flow, like drawing lines on the painting and stuff like that. But it's also like thinking about like, what are the patterns, what are the contrasts. So if I convert this to black and white, then you can see that actually a lot of the information in the light here is actually contained within the color. So when I'm thinking about the color, like for instance, like this, the difference between this sail and this sky is basically like the sky is more gray. And so I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, that's actually the main difference. What separates this, say for instance, if I remove this line separating the sail, you see that when I turn it to black and white, if without that shadow there, I cannot tell where the sail starts or ends in the black and white. So that's how close in value these are. Like obviously, but if I made this a soft edge, you see how, like, just removing that out. So we're investigating things by basically breaking up the stuff that we see and to figure out like why they have to be that way. So another thing that we notice is that there's this kind of like little cool pattern of reds, right? You have this red color here in his hat, on his cloak, but curiously not on any of these other hats, right? It's like there's a point that we have to go and look here and go back behind, and that has to do with this sail. But we'll get back to that. So we have this red color here, and if you follow up, you see them. It's on the bandanas here, here, and here. It basically creates this little arrow up for us to follow through. And in the very top, there's this tiny little red flag, which is very curious. It's a very terrible flag in a way. It's like the most a really crappy pirate flag, but it has a cool gesture. Isn't that interesting how it's been chosen to go into this direction, where we then have a color that is chosen to be very bright, but ultimately it has very low value contrast to the rest of the ship here. And that kind of completes our loop. So we start by the pirates, we go all the way up, and we follow this line over, and we go here. In this way, the red color becomes like a dominant force that helps us get through the image. If you're looking at any painting that you know of, a lot of times, if you just look for like where are the same colors happening, you can usually tell that they are not done by a random choice. So that's the one thing you can investigate. And you can also investigate them by basically removing them. Like if I turned all these red colors to gray, see, it's a student who analyzed this painting for me. It's really great. You see here, like by making some of them blue, like, yeah, by making some of them blue in this case, you see how like suddenly like they are like one with the sea, and we don't get the same kind of flow and information at all. What matters in this guy is because this sail is another way of making us go into the space. So everything, something is behind that has a high contrast to what's in front, we will immediately use whatever link that front line gives us, right? It will say, go here and look this way up. If we change the shape of the sail, which is a huge part of the flow of the upwards momentum up into the top of this painting, suddenly we have no flow in the image. Like it's the same thing. So when I'm talking about investigating the images, it's really a matter of like going in and sabotaging and trying out like why is it like that? Because ultimately you're not trying to necessarily get like a perfect understanding of like what they did. You're looking for clues that you can then use in your own work, basically. The third question is, when does this take place? So you now know what you're looking at and why you're looking at it. The reason why I say when does it take place is because in most cases, when we're working on illustrations, we only have one moment to choose from. Is it before, during, or after the event is happening? So this is during the attack, but it's in the, I would say in the early phase of the plan. We don't really know the outcome of either of these things that are going on right now. We can think of like, why would a given moment be chosen? So in this case, obviously it's the attack on the galleon. So it's the most promising way to show the ocean, the drama, and the night sky without necessarily having to draw a whole bunch of people fighting. Because if we went closer to the boat, we wouldn't necessarily have that much information to go off. Like the drama would not be nearly as high in this case. If we look at someone like Even the Terrible, this is a painting. You've probably seen the final painting. It's like Even the Terrible holding his son, and this happens in the aftermath of him killing his son and him by basically having a lot of grief on it. And the reason why we ask when does this take place, like why was this moment chosen, is because we're trying to investigate, could there have been a more exciting moment where we would have like a stronger story told? And it kind of helps us when we're making our own paintings to say, okay, I kind of know what I'm trying to get at. So how do I depict it? How do I make it happen? And again, we come back to taking our idea and use that as leverage to then play around in multiple ways. So like it makes a decision on our behalf. Okay, and then the final stage of this is to basically use those ideas, what you find, discover, to break it down. So what you end up with is that you have like a whole bunch of notes. I make a lot of my students do this exercise a lot because it's just useful to inquire about what is going on in the painting, right? Because you have this like very cool flow in the case of the galleon of the sail, and I can think of multiple ways of this idea being used to navigate like an image down the line. Of course, only if I'm painting images of boats. But having like a big object in the foreground that dominates the image to then lead us to the background, that is something that you can use in any kind of painting, like be painting castles, interiors, all kinds of things. And so you kind of want to separate the decision making from the context of the painting so that it actually becomes useful to you as a tool later down the line. And over time, like I have done this kind of takes on like hundreds of paintings at this point. You end up in this insane encyclopedic way of thinking about how to depict images. I mean, I don't call myself insane. The search becomes much easier once you're done painting because you go, oh, I know like 30 ways to handle this kind of problem. And because I know for sure that these things are from paintings that I 100% believe in are like masterpieces, and because I know that that's how they work, then that gives me the confidence to then say and commit and say, okay, I'm going to spend the 2 weeks and long of like 2 or 3 weeks of long nights to basically make a big painting based on a tiny, tiny sketch, because I can follow the decision making that I've already understood from many other paintings, even my own work, that I know where this leads and where it goes. And in that way, I can then come back and find a result that I find deeply satisfying and deeply interesting. And I can believe in that even if I'm discouraged throughout the process, because I know I can do it. And if you apply these ideas to your own work, then I think that you will be able to do it too. All right. That will be the end of the prepared lecture. If there's any questions, just let me know. Yes, Jacob.
Yeah. So on the painting analysis, I just want to check if like I got the question framework. So one is, what am I seeing?
I'll write it down on the screen. Hang on, let me just do that for you.
Okay.
Yeah, hang on. So if you are taking a screenshot, hang on, let me just get the. Right. So what am I seeing? How do I know that I'm seeing that? What supports it? Why am I looking at the point of interest? Right. Like what, why, and when. And then when we're trying to learn from it, we're basically trying to break it. Like when I'm teaching this specifically in like just using this tool, there's a lot more time spent on like actually thinking about like what are the chosen tools and whatnot. I will make more things covering this topic specifically, so you can just follow along my profiles, and I will probably end up covering it publicly because I think it's so useful and so powerful. If you do this like 10 times, you're gonna be a better painter. Like it's no this is my guarantee. Literally, like if you do it like once, you'll be a better painter. Like if you do it 10 times and you really think about what's going on and you really try to break it and play around with it, the way that you think about painting is going to align with the paintings that you actually look at. Ultimately, when we're talking about how do I get better at making my own pieces, it's not a matter of closing in and saying I'm not going to learn from anyone else. It's more, and for me at least, it is more about really being open and learning from everything that I love. Because if I can learn from everything that I love, that I want to learn from, I can then embody it because I have learned all these lessons from it. I cannot become those people, but by learning from everyone at once, right? So I'm like when I'm like talking about studying and stuff, like I would basically suggest that instead of doing one study at a time, you can try this. It's just like what you basically have like 2 or 3 studies. So like this, and you have 3 different references that you're going on, and you just paint on one, and then after a time, you start painting on the other, and you want to keep them roughly around the same stage. And this could be for drawing, it could be for painting as well. But then when you do one stage, usually in painting, we move on to the next stage. So by having a painting that you're studying for, that is just at the step you just went on, you can now take the lesson you learned from doing the block-in, for instance, of one painting and immediately use it for the next one and the next one. And that way you actually train it 3 times in a row before you move on to the next thing. And what you'll notice is that it will actually help the whole way through, where like at the last painting will feel a lot more effortless and fast to come together than the 2 up front, because here you are basically like making a simpler version of like the same practice each time by having like this, like basically like you in the middle like this, having all these different constraints around you, all these different like things you're learning from at the bottom. You kind of like end up gravitating towards certain paintings more, right? Like you end up like basically studying more of like one kind of cluster of ideas, and all this studying that you're doing then, or for like all your favorite things, like your little buffet of things, it will kind of like become this compass for yourself of which direction of things you really like and really love. And so by just studying the things you like you can, and then, I mean, studying, it's not just like studying master copies. It's like painting drawing your favorite chair, painting your couch, like draw your favorite lamp, draw your girlfriend. I didn't know why I said girlfriend after all those things, right? Like draw your partner before you draw your chair, right? But like maybe start with a pillow because they're easy to draw, right? Very forgiving. You go like pillow, and that feels like a pillow. Like they're very forgiving. Like they will look like pillows no matter what you do, right? And then by just keeping these things in mind, then you are much closer to your sources of what's happening. I think ultimately you have to kind of satisfy yourself first. Because if you satisfy yourself, then you are satisfied. You are happy with the painting you did. And then expanding on that point, people are like you, right? You are unique, but you are not that unique, right? So people who are like you, they will also like the painting. And then you actually have an audience of people who like what you do, that you care for, that want to see what you're doing. If we draw for hypothetical jobs or hypothetical people, like an audience, quote unquote, that doesn't exist, then we're painting for no one. And then it makes sense that no one wants to watch, right? Like this is such a prevalent thing that I actually found books talking about paintings where they said, when you are scared of what you're doing with the painting and you don't know who it's for, just say like this: it's for the neighbor as a gentle surprise. Like it was for Mr. Bixby as a gentle surprise. And like all the students in this class apparently said it. And this is a book from like 120 years ago. So have a person in mind, and then that will also be a guiding idea, so that you're not just doing it in a vacuum. And that it's fine with that person, it's you. Okay. Did you get the screenshot of the questions? Yes, great.
Yep.
All right. Is there any more questions? We have room for like two more. You had your hand up, or was it just put?
Oh, no, sorry, I was just saying that was good. I took the questions, but you know,
okay.
I gotta go now, so I didn't
Okay.
mean to interrupt you.
No,
I
thank you for
appreciate it,
coming
man.
to class.
You're really awesome. Oh no, you were awesome, man. I really hope to see you, in a future. So it was great. Thank you, guys. So have
No
a great day,
problem.
man.
Okay, well, enjoy your evening, Jeff, and thank you for coming to
Thank you,
class.
man.
It was great to have you.
Oh, thanks to
All right.
you. Have a nice day.
Yeah. All right. And so
I had a question, like Jonathan.
Yeah.
For me, it was mostly. I mean, like first of all, like thanks for like all the presentation. It was like so great, and I'm really thankful that I could like listen to you. And for me, it was mostly about starting to like get into like bigger project, because me, I started like it's quite recent. I've never been into like really like illustration work, and I'm mostly like working on like character design. And for me, like the step between like doing like character design, like just a single character on a white background, to like a full illustration seems really daunting, because I feel I have to like to work on like so many things at the same time, that I'm kind of like scared of like the amount of work that I'm like, where should I start?
That comes from adding the background.
Yeah, like when it comes to like going from like one character to like a fully image, because I'm like, okay, now I have to think about like composition. I have to think about like the perspective of everything, this kind of stuff. And I don't know like what your thought on like how to start like getting into like this kind of body of work, like starting to getting into illustration stuff, but in a way that maybe it's like beginner friendly in a way. I don't know if it's something that's like works.
I think, okay, like, so I'm just trying to think about the best way to go about answering the question. So I think that the way that you're describing this issue is because right now you do mostly character stuff, right? That was like your focus, right? You do character design, I remember. And you do some. We talked about it. I'll give you feedback on this. when we met it last year. But
Mhm.
I think what you have to keep in mind is that the background and the character are not a separate thing. When we are drawing a character in a scene, the whole thing has to be considered, right? Like you cannot just add a random place because it's like street photography, right? Like you wouldn't see like a really high-end person, with like a big fur coat and like really like rich in the slums, unless like they're like,
Mhm.
inspecting the next property development after the slums burn down mysteriously. There's an aspect to the character of like where they are depicted, where they are at, and I think that the question about like having like this like anxiousness about like, oh, I have to do all these elements, I have to make all these things happen, that is in itself difficult, especially if you're not used to it. I think that I would just tell you what I did to overcome this when I really start to combine these things. Just take bad photographs. Okay, take photographs and then like take photographs with your friends in spaces, and then you can take out the perspective from the spaces. Like you basically take a photo of a friend, and then you turn it into let's see here. So I have this old painting lined up here. So this is from like 2000 and it's like 10 years old at this point, I think. But I still really like it. Like it's actually one of my favorite old paintings. I have it hanging on my wall here. I'm like, oh, this is a nice painting. And I was in an abandoned barn with a friend, and I just took this random photo. The barn had nothing in it, but I really liked the placement of these two beams, and I thought like this person standing here, that's like perspective reference. You can just directly take inspiration from a real situation that you've been in, that you understand and know, and like you can imagine like, oh, what would that be like if this and that, and then again, like the photo was literally just like we had the barn, we had the two beams, we have the person, and the photo kind of like was taken like from this angle, right? Like these two beams, person here. I just ran with that idea based on this. So try to do the painting analysis and just write me how it feels to do it. Like even just like doing like a rudimentary sketch. It doesn't have to be like really advanced, right? Like again, like you saw the thumbnail I did. You see these like little doodles I'm doing here. I do an effort to make a feel of like what the painting could feel like. Like even like look at something here. If I take this guy here, I move him around the circle, how that changes the relationship. Like here, is he walking out of the circle? Compared to if he's here, suddenly like now it feels like an object in front of him, like a big portal. And so just like doing a small change like that, I can like really evaluate how does these two ideas relate to each other. You can think of like the simpler you can play around with your ideas when we were kids, right? You had like your characters, you did them like this, and then you gave him a knife. And this kind of like fun playfulness we did as a kid, or like we can kind of tell the story in the drawing. You can kind of use the same way to just tell a story for yourself, and then eventually you draw the person holding the knife. But just to have like a little play dollhouse to draw in, that can do wonders for you. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think there's like an easy answer other than just doing it and trying it out. If it helps your fear, I think it's also a matter of that you feel confident in drawing characters. You might not feel confident in drawing environments. So I think that what is the underlying suggestion that you're actually making for yourself is that you want to get better environments.
Okay.
And then you can include characters, right? I think that right now your character skill likely is much higher than your environment's painting skill. And what you're struggling with is because when you're trying to match those, like you're kind of like you're doing like what I'm doing with the stick man, but you have like a nice character right in front of it. You go, oh, it's not living up to my expectations of myself. Is that it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I think maybe make a project for yourself. Tell yourself like in 5 days I'll stop, and you just do an environment piece and you really think it out. And you kind of like you do like a study of environments as like a part of your routine, like landscape studies or anything, just like quick paint studies or like little line studies basically. And over time you're gonna get familiarize yourself with them, and then it won't be scary. I think like in a way, the most scary thing about art that makes us feel not confident is just that we're not exposed to how that works yet. And that fear, if it stops us from doing it, then we will never do it because we will kind of be stuck in that.
Okay.
All right. So that's all the time I put aside for this class. So thank you for showing up. I'm doing another class, the 30th, that is going to be different than this one. So if you're interested, you can also sign up for that one if you have the time. And I will see you soon. And I hope that you take some good information away from this class, and that you have a good weekend.